China has seen massive outflows of money in recent years, and much of that has ended up in real estate. Prices have become historically distorted and absurd in many cities, in which foreign investment is disproportionate to local purchases. Now, more and more analysts are warning this is going to end very badly. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Let's talk about what has been said about the Canadian real estate market and the inevitable crash. Let's begin with what I talked about yesterday's video. If you haven't seen it, basically just a couple points. The fact that, in the past month, they're looking at the year over year, sales fell 26%. And then you look at during that same time, basically in this last month, 17% crash in the prices, the average price of detached Vancouver properties. Now, Vancouver is the peak of the Canadian housing market and how fast it has really grown in this period of time. But it shows you sort of exactly what has happened over the past few years and even longer. So that's the introduction here. Let's move on to what I want to get into today. Worse than the 2008 US crash. Can you believe it? They're actually saying that. It's not me saying that. I do believe it's going to be massive. If you are Canadian or you're from, let's say, another place in the world, and you look at the U.S. home prices prior to the real estate crash and afterwards, and you can see a significant drop in many cases. But compare that to the housing prices currently in Canada, and it's nothing compared to where they were, let's say, mid-2000s up until today. It is nothing. The dramatic loss that will be encountered in these coming times is going to make 2008 seem like nothing. That's me saying that. But let's get back to the article. China's largest finance portal recently published an article pointing to Canada's debt-fueled economy. I always talk about this. Canadians, and you've heard it like a broken record, Canadians are in the most amount of debt they have ever been. Ever. All-time high debt. They noted that Canadians had the largest debt-to-income ratio, covered it before, debt-to-income ratio, very important, of any G7 country, with the average spending 165% of their salary. Now you tell me, if you're spending 165% of your salary, where are you getting the money to pay for your iPods and iPhones, and where are you getting the money to save for the future? Well, of course you're not, because you're in debt. You're heavily in debt. Not like the GDP of many of these countries, which are at around 100%, let's say. But no, you've gone beyond that, 165%. Impossible to ever get out of that debt for most people. To contrast, at the height of the U.S. housing crisis 2008, Americans carried what was then considered to be an outlandish 147%. 17% lower than where they currently sit. So, huge amounts of debt that have piled up. It's not just the country is in debt. Okay, US, you have too much debt. China, you have too much debt. No, it's on the personal level. It's on the cities. It's on every single level throughout the government and also in individuals as well. Canada, total household debt reached nearly $2 trillion. 1.2 trillion of that is mortgage debt. So that's where it's all coming from. People have added as much mortgage as they possibly can. There is this lie, as far as I'm concerned, that in Canada you have to have very strict regulations because of the, few decades ago, as they experienced the banking almost a collapse, in fact, that in the early 90s, where you had such a big problem. So they said, okay, we are going to have these tight regulations. And then when the financial crisis came, again, they said, we are going to tighten up. We're going to make sure that we don't have the same problems as they do in the US. But it just fueled the bubble and fueled the bubble over and over again, all because of low interest rates being the primary factor, as well as general incentives to have maximum amount of mortgages. You know, they will give out mortgages that can never be paid back under the assumption, and this is the assumption, is that the housing prices will always increase. Therefore, there is no need to worry. It's a safe investment, AAA rated, however you want to look at it. That's not the case. That's 65% more than we make per year. To put that 1.82 trillion into perspective, we could have run the US government for 8 months with that amount of money. And Paul Ashworth at the bottom here, he's out of Toronto. This is a very big bubble and it's going to end in tears. Something that I think about all the time, because there's a lot of people and Canadians out there, please comment here. How many people do you talk to that say the real estate prices will not go down? Tell me. Please, I need to know, because I'm not the only one. I know in my mind I'm not the only one who hears this all the time. How real estate is the best investment and it never goes down in price. Now, I believe that real estate is an excellent investment. You got to know what you're doing. It's not just buy and assume it's going to go up in value. And appreciation is only one of the 4 ways to have real estate become a good investment for you. There are 4 different ways, and I talked about that in my book. But what I'm trying to say is that you can't buy an asset, any asset, with the understanding that it's going to go up. That is a failure to think that way. You buy an asset for different reasons. For example, gold and silver. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter if gold and silver goes up. Yes, during inflationary times, they do well. But, or they should do well, depending on the manipulation. But it's being used to maintain wealth. That's the purpose. Anyway, you may not agree with that, but that's sort of what I'm trying to suggest here. And real estate has 4 different ways. And then you look at paper assets, which can bring in passive income, businesses, which can bring in the passive income, and so on. Anyway, let's move on here. Rambling far too much. Let me look at these next articles, cover them very quickly. And you look at Canadian banks could survive a 25% house price decline. This right here, this was hilarious to me. I was laughing about this. Initially, I thought it was humor. I thought it was a joke, maybe something from Saturday Night Live or some other comedy show. But no, apparently this is actually CBC printing this. Moody's is saying that. Moody's, the AAA ratings on subprime debt. That's the Moody's we're talking about here, that says they could survive a 25% house decline. There's no way that they can survive 25%. And as well as connected into this article here, talking about the fact that a housing crash will affect young people, basically talking about, there's a select few people that are going to be hurt by this. And I really have to extend that out and really suggest that they're not thinking harshly enough about this situation. This happens to be the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. However, this is affecting everybody. They're not being bold enough in their statement, CCPA. They need to realize how everything is relying on the housing now. Now you had the oil situation where the prices were severely depressed and still are by compared to where they were a few years ago. And think about it for a second, how now everything is riding on the housing prices. If they decline 25%, as was suggested in the previous article, you're going to have massive destruction as a result, because everything is riding on that now. Everything. And it's really serious to think about where this will go. That's all for this video. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. I really do appreciate the thumbs up, because it basically takes these videos and pushes them higher up onto the YouTube search rankings. So this type of video, my videos, will be more likely to come up. So I appreciate that, as part of your generosity to me. Thank you. I would also say that if you're watching these videos, if you're watching this, definitely become a subscriber. There's a subscriber button there. You push that and you will be notified when I have new videos out. I try to get the videos out as often as possible and only covering the most important information, and I try to get through it as quick as it possibly can, still being as detailed as possible. One thing that I wanted to mention was that when I post the sources down below, if they contain information that has things that YouTube doesn't like, I either get rid of the link entirely just to be safe, or if it's something that's a little bit catchy, what I'll do is I'll put a space in that particular word. So watch out for that. For example, if it's the word war, they don't like that, I'll put a space in between the W and the AR, and that will not be able to trigger, at least I haven't noticed, will be able to trigger the YouTube censorship. So look for that. If you're trying to take that link and trying to click on it, doesn't work, just look for the spaces in those keywords there. That's all I'll tell you. So again, if you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found this video informative, then check out the book. Go over to Amazon. They have a look inside feature. It's going to allow you to flip through the pages of the book and see if you like it. Take care.